Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. This video has been a long time coming, but I wanted to make sure that it was just right. My dad was in his 70s with an advanced case of COPD and heart problems. A series of unfortunate events had led to him going downhill very quickly, and the temporary solution to it was something he didn't want. It therefore fell largely to myself and my brother to keep him as comfortable as possible until an end which would come much sooner than we'd thought. I spent his last night by his bedside on a hospital ward where several other people lay gravely ill or dying. The insistent beeping of dueling heart monitors filled the twilight, each one feeling like a heavy drip of water onto the back of my neck. He wasn't hooked up to one himself because it was agreed to be pointless. He had no wish to be revived, even if it had been possible. The nature of his illness meant that death was certain given but little time. Only how much time remained was unclear. I sat there all night with him in that curtained-off rectangle, each electronic tone marking the reality of the moments dropping away, never to return. His weightless hand felt like autumn leaves. Even now I can close my eyes and be back there in an instant, and I don't think that recall will ever fade. There's an element of disbelief in it. How could this happen? Parents are immortal. Every child holds this truth to be self-evident until rudely disabused of the notion, hopefully late in their lives. How did my dad, in what felt like a few short years, go from a Popeye-armed sturdiness to a frail old man who a strong wind might whisk away? They say time is the fire in which we burn, and burn he had, the kindling of illness stacked around him accelerating the work of those terrible flames. It was like an evening sitting with death, just the three of us, keeping my dad's parched lips moistened, wondering if each rise and fall of his chest might be the last. Grief red in tooth and claw, straining to breach the flimsy barrier of stoicism I'd thrown up, just waiting to flood the room at the point his merciful unconsciousness slipped away to leave the waxen stillness of utter absence. My brother had gone home to try to get some sleep, but when he came back to the hospital to relieve me of my vigil in the morning, I knew in my heart that it was going to be the last time I'd see my dad again. It's not unreasonable for you to ask at this point, why did you go if you knew his time was so short? Why didn't you stay? I've asked myself that question quite a few times since. The truth was that he had lost consciousness very early in the night, helped by the chemical kindness of morphine ministrations from the palliative care nurses, who are a singular breed of person and who I cannot praise enough for their humanity and honesty. There was zero chance of him coming to and opening his eyes again. And crucially, it felt like I had already said an 8-hour goodbye to him. I could almost feel his hand on my shoulder saying, "Go on, son. I'm not really here anymore. Cheers for helping. Now get yourself back home and give the girls one last hug from me." No words had been left unsaid while words could still be shared. He had asked us to get him painlessly over the line, a phrase he used multiple times. The fact was, after a very difficult few years, he was simply ready to go. He had come to terms with it and just wanted to check out without pain or struggle. We made that possible for him. It is a comfort to me that, in all of the self-questioning you do when looking back at events, I have no regrets. This was my experience of the end of my dad. That night changed me. I greeted the dawn of that first day with a mixture of positivity and sadness. It seemed like such a short while ago that we'd been discussing it, but in reality it had somehow been just over a year since Dad passed. The plan was for myself, my elder brother, my dad's 3 sisters, their partners and nephew to travel up to Braemar, where we would stay for a few days, release Dad's ashes into the River Dee, then strike out further north on one of the following days to the Highland Military Museum at Fort George in relation to another special family matter which I'll speak more to later. While still grieving, I was looking forward to finally adding a ritual full stop to the sentence of his loss. I was also looking forward to renewing acquaintance with family who, while relatively local, I seldom get to see or spend time with. They were travelling up in separate cars and renting accommodation in Braemar as well. Myself and my brother stayed at the Cranford Guest House, which was a lovely, cosy place with friendly owners, and I'd thoroughly recommend to anyone heading up that way. My brother is 5 years my elder, but we grew up quite close. The two of us sorting out the administration of Dad's affairs together had, I think, brought us even closer together, though we'd never been distant. I knew that, notwithstanding the circumstances and purpose of the journey, there would be plenty of conversation and 40-year-old in-jokes on the 250-odd-mile-long drive northward. In expectation of our plans to release him into the River Dee at Balmoral, the funeral directors had sealed Dad's ashes into what I can only describe as a size 4 bright green football, the ashes held inside a soluble outer shell a few inches thick. The idea is that this shell crumbles and dissolves in the water, releasing the ashes, without the wind-related concerns that emptying ashes onto water might involve. They had stressed to my brother, who had been custodian of the ashes since his passing, that it was imperative to keep it very dry until the last moment. To this end, my dad's final journey to Scotland took place inside a green water-soluble bowl, which was held inside a thick plastic bag, inside a protective cardboard box. Though I know he would have adored the rolling mountain scenery, I resisted the urge to retrieve him from his moisture-controlled environment and have him up next to us in the front of the car like Wilson from Castaway. And so, heart heavy light and mood happy sad, our trek began. After several hours on the road, we had a brief pit stop at the motorway services to wolf down some pre-prepared food I'd brought for us. We'd agreed that we should go for some stuff that Dad would have enjoyed, so peck sandwiches and cheese scones were the order of the day. Onwards we went, eventually heading over the spectacular Queensferry crossing across the Firth of Forth, leaving motorways behind and getting deeper into the interior. I had expected some spectacular scenery as we got deeper into Scotland, but nothing had fully prepared me for it. The muted palette of mountain scenery soon began to assert itself, a watercolour flood of dark greens and browns, punctuated by splashes of purple heather, ancient stone crags jutting from the earth like the knucklebones of buried giants, and remote houses nestling here and there at the feet or in the folds of pine, birch and oak. The Wi-Fi of daily worries slowly dropped away to nothing, enfeebled by distance and shielded by mountains. I found the largely unspoiled nature of it very calming. I got the feeling that you could come back to any of those same spots in 200 years and it'd look largely the same. We also went through some lovely tiny little villages and towns, seeming to drive into and out of them in less than a minute.
One does not simply walk into...
Blink and you'd miss it, oases of civilization amongst the unforgiving but ruggedly beautiful landscape seemed par for the course here. The extended family had all met up near the river and we walked down together. I think it was fair to say that I didn't feel sad at this point, more reflective. The green stillness and the sound of running water made for a very peaceful backdrop to your thoughts. My brother placed my dad into the running water of the river. Now, if you recall earlier, I'd mentioned that my dad's ashes had been placed inside a special soluble sphere for the purposes of release into water. We'd been told to place it in running water and to be sure it was placed well, as it would dissolve quickly. Well, placed in running water he was, and we all stood back and watched, waiting for it to fall apart and for the ashes to mingle with the water and gently flow away. And we solemnly watched. And watched. And waited. And waited. Had we done it right? Was there some kind of problem with it? My dad would have found it hilarious. As it was, my brother, bless his soul, had to return to it and give it a gentle poke, at which point it largely crumbled and the deed was done. It was almost like Dad having a last laugh with us. He'd always been a very practical man and had often joked in the past, "Well, honestly, when I go, just leave me outside for the bin men to get rid of, I'll not be there to worry about it." Many pictures and videos were taken, plus the odd stone as a memento mori. My dad and his sisters had spent summers up here with family near Balmoral, and he knew it well. The idea that we were returning him to a place he had always loved was a great comfort to us. Although there was a lump in my throat at one point, it quickly went, and I think it was that comfort that relieved me of it. It felt like discharging a final duty to him, a duty which was no burden, but instead an absolute privilege. The journey continued north to the Highland Military Museum at Fort George, following up on information my brother had discovered about our great-great-grandfather. Not only did they have his medals, they were kind enough to allow us to view them in private and explain how each one had been earned and how it all pieced together into his own personal history. He had been one of the original members of the pre-World War I regular army that was the first to go across to France, the British Expeditionary Force. He also served in Turkey, India and Northern Ireland as well during some not exactly quiet times. Hearing all of these recollections of the man we'd never met, but who without we would not exist, felt like temporarily raising a ghost. Here was this incredible guy who had served in so many different dangerous places, was wounded but recovered and returned to service. Any one of those places could easily have been the end of him, as it proved for so many millions of other men. One bullet would have made the difference between our family existing and not existing. It was a sobering thought. We'd also had the pleasure of spending some evening meal and drinks time with the extended family who were with us, renewing bonds of kinship which were never strained but often simply buried under moving in other circles with other time demands. It is very common, of course, for families to come together around funerals. Sometimes it's the only time people catch up. This trip had been something extra, something unique and memorable for all the right reasons. They were all very easy company, and it was good to spend time with them all. It was a long drive home. We did do a detour to see the kelpies, which were magnificent, and I'd recommend if anyone's up that way, definitely go and have a look at them. I arrived home much later that day, feeling like something had been accomplished. It felt a bit like returning from a quest of some kind, cringe as that might sound. My wife's smiling face greeting me at the door as I struggled in, my head borderline sunburned and marginally sleep-deprived. Something of note had been done that would stay in the memory forever. So, besides that memory, how have these events affected me? It made me reassess everything, to a lesser degree about how I'd spent my life thus far, but to a greater degree about what I would do with the indefinite amount that I currently have left to me. It made carpe diem a maxim to live by rather than just a phrase. We tend to live life as if there's an inexhaustible supply, especially when we're younger. And then, before we know it, we're middle-aged and confronting the loss of parents, greying hair, children growing up fast, and a feeling of being a bit spent, a bit less relevant to the world or to other people, a bit more disposable. This can affect you one of two ways, depending on your predilection for considering the glass to be either half full or half empty. It can be fertile ground for a seed of deep-rooted depression, or can be a galvanizing power to renew efforts to make a mark on the world prior to the sands of your own life running out. When I made my YouTube channel here, I was looking backwards, creating something for posterity, a place my family could go to hear their dad or granddad tell them a story, or read them a poem, or recount to them a pithy quote in one of several accents of variable authenticity when I was gone. A time capsule of me, and something probably unlikely to get any kind of general attention where my videos are just one click amongst countless billions of options. But here I am, 36,000 subscribers later, looking forwards to a future of overdue possibilities. It sort of renewed my faith in myself, so to speak. I am very proud to be my father's son. My dad taught me right from wrong, to leave things better than you found them, to question everything, to look at the data, not just the summary, to look behind the obvious to the core of the matter. He was a stoic man, born only 4 years after the end of World War II, into a very different country and world than the one which I live in today. Someone with a strong sense of duty and responsibility. He was a lover of proverbs, and always seemed to have one that applied to the situation. One of his favourites was, "As you sow, so shall you reap." And it's very much in that vein that I carry forward his memory and the grief, trying to sow seeds of "you can do this, it's not too late" into my life. That is his enduring gift to me, a renewed and urgent sense of the possible, and an affirmation that while time may well be the fire in which we burn, it can also be the hill we climb to the sunlit uplands beyond. Thanks, Dad. And thanks to you all for listening to this one. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if any of this has resonated with you, or you found yourself feeling similar things. Feel free to share this video with someone who you think might benefit from it. Until the next time, take care and hold those dear to you close, because you never know which hug will be the last. Steve.